evolution or evolving technologies and its impact on humanity. It's an enabler or disabling. For some of the grammar Nazis that are here, it cannot be disabler only because disabler is not an English word. So we had to settle for disabling, though it doesn't rhyme with enabling though. I will introduce the panel once again, and we are seriously very blessed to have this interesting panel. We have Mr. Lakshmi Narayan. I think he's a stalwart from South India, and especially Chennai, the ex-vice chairman and CEO of Cognizant. We have Peter Gartenberg, who should assume an Indian name right now, considering that he's been in India now for 18 plus years. He's been with Siemens, he was with SAP as a country head, and now Microsoft is proud to have Peter run their commercial services as a general manager. Mr. Vaghul was one of the youngest chairmen of a public sector bank, State Bank of India. We researched you, sir. And you were also the chairman of ICICI Bank. But most important, he's been one of the founder of Pratham. And Ms. Lakshmi Narayan told me about it, and then we researched extensively, because in the US, Pratham is one of the well-known NGOs that many of us definitely engage with. And then Ms. Lalitha Kumaramangalam, fantastic background, and she of course been the chairman of the Women's Council of India, National Secretary of BJP. She was also the spokesperson, or is the spokesperson for BJP, and an illustrious background. I think if there was a family tree, and what is interesting is, you will know later, but Bhakti Rasamrit Maharaj lived in a house which was also where your grandfather Ajay Mukherjee used to live. So it's a small world, and we'll talk about it. So what we wanted to do was try and make this as argumentative and provocative if we can. We have in us some of the proponents. We want you to give some contrarian point of view. And Mr. Vaghul has clearly told us you're not a technologist, sir, but you've been a very successful humanist. So we'd love to hear more from the purpose of life from you as well. So I'd like to start with all of you trying to maybe give your interpretation of technology, evolving and evolution of technology, and where you see that impacting humanity. Could we start with you?
Good evening. Vanakkam to all of you friends. I have to admit that, like Mr. Vaghul, I'm not exactly a technology expert. My granddaughter probably knows how to use my iPhone better than I do, and very often points it out. Now, I will speak from the perspective of the 3 years that I spent as the head of the National Commission for Women, because while I wholeheartedly agree that technology does enable people, for those who don't have access, who don't have the skills and the training, it's an enormous disabler.
Very briefly answer. Even if we come to the conclusion that it is not an enabler, it is a disabling, you can do very little about it. I think the technology is going to come up, whether you like it or not, and you have to accept it. At best, you can think in terms of regulating the consequences of the technology. But I think technology also would be able to overcome that regulation. And we should be in a position. The world has seen a lot of these disabling consequences of the technology. Right from the time I was told that when I was in Calcutta, there used to be a strike in the writers' building when typewriter was introduced, because they said that that would throw the clerks out of the job. So I don't think I'm very much bothered about the way technology is shaping. It's not amazed that technology is making such a major stride in the world. And India saying that we are part of the world and we are part of that community, world community. We are not able to harness and leverage the technology for the benefit of the mass of people who are suffering. I'm amazed. I've been talking to these people. Why are we not thinking in terms of using technology for teaching the children? millions and millions of children who have no access to the school. Today, science has made such a rapid strides in advancing technologies. I think as Lalitha was mentioning, that an 18-month-old child will be in a position to handle a smartphone much better than many of us can do, because it's so tech-savvy from the point of the birth. I don't know why that same science cannot be used for solving the basic problem, what you called the humanist problem.
Would you like to, because there's a lot being said that technology is a disabler and ought to be almost fait accompli, and what is your point of view in this area?
What excites me is what you can do with it. So one of the earliest things that I've been interested in terms of what technology could do for India, was in the area of agriculture. And one of these great projects that I got the privilege to be somewhat involved with Microsoft Research based out of Hyderabad was in Andhra. They used a artificial intelligence, machine learning, a big data application where they put these very low-cost sensors into agricultural fields that did correlations of the moisture in the soil, tested and delivered using Internet of IoT, Internet of Things data back. It did correlations with weather patterns, and they were able to do dramatic improvements in productivity.
Challenge her when she almost dismissed technology affecting the sector. I mean, be it farming, be it prediction, be it weather related. How can we be so dismissive that a significant swath of sector has not been helped or been a disabler for technology?
I think the issues of accessibility are completely valid. They started using WhatsApp for their organizing activity and for organizing jobs, and that was a big breakthrough for them.
Science and technology, more specifically technology, is not just the means, it is the end to everything.
All right.
Yeah,
very good.
I'll make a couple of examples. I think the previous speaker spoke about access, affordability, etc. But also about learning new technologies and being familiar with what's current. I'll pick 3 examples very quickly and run through them. First one is an example from this city. There is a Dr. K.M. Cherian, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with him. He's a heart specialist, someone who has performed over 45,000 cardiac surgeries, the first one to do a cardiac surgery in India, the first one to do a transplant here in India. And he's investing his time, or he has invested his time, effort, energy in some of the latest in medical technology like tissue engineering, like stents, manufacturing stents. Stents, the heart stents are important, which are expensive. If you have to make it affordable, you have to manufacture it locally. He has come up with the technology to do that and so on. And you know what his current passion is? He's into genomics and nanoparticles. He is talking very passionately about nanoparticles that can be ionized or magnetized, and that can be fused with protein and magnetically directed to spots in the body where that protein will cure or kill cancer cells. Actually, but 2, the individual who's 85 years old, investing his time, and the only 2 things that he cares about is, so all these technologies are available, I need to provide access to this, to all the people. So, one is access, and the second, the more important thing is affordability. And it can be made affordable here in India, provided we spend enough time and effort and money in researching and investing in these new technologies. Will become quite commonplace. This is practiced by a company called Unanimous AI. It's a new company. Their claim to fame more recently was they predicted that Me Too will be the Time Person of the Year. Artificial intelligence can predict certain events or certain results, how about predicting a horse race, the Kentucky Derby? So the challenge that was given to them was, can you predict the first 4 horses, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the right order? Can you use whatever? The technology that they use is what's called the swarm intelligence. That's something that you can read on the net. And they said, that team said, perfect, we will use the technology provided we are allowed to bet on the races. They were allowed to bet. They predicted 1, 2, 3, 4 in the right order. And some of the people who are working in that company became huge successes and millionaires overnight.
I knew back to you now. I think you have enough fodder to be push points.
Say is an enabler. But if you don't have the access to technology, if you don't have the education and the skills to use technology, you really get left behind. Let me come to the agriculture that was referred to. About 80% of labor in agriculture today are women, especially in this country, throughout the country. It's not reflected only in one region, all over. You go to Maharashtra, you go to Tamil Nadu, you go to the Northeast, it doesn't make a difference. Now, when I was chairperson of the NCW, we worked with women farmer-producer organizations, right? Now, those women come up with, they obviously, in India we have this habit of giving costly gifts to people who are the head of any organization when you're invited to a meeting. And I had traveled to Uttarakhand for the meeting. The lady there was, she was about educated up to the 8th standard, and she was a brilliant businesswoman, far better than I ever could be. Her problem was she didn't know how to market using the internet. So she was telling me that, ma'am, please see to it that the children in our villages, apparently some of the government's investment in optic fiber is paying off there, but they're not trained. They're not educated on how to exactly use various apps. They had no way to market their goods. Know how to market their goods. Technology is one of the easiest things to use. And I think even me, I'm catching up with my granddaughter pretty fast because I'm learning it. But when you don't have the access to it, then it can really push you behind your peers. In urban slums, women from minority communities, those who don't have enough access to education and skilling, find technology a huge barrier.
Interesting segue to get back to Mr. Vaghul. Your point that you started was you felt the question itself is moot because technology is going to be happening and it's fait accompli. So my thought, and since you've been a leader, a significant leader in one of the larger firms, isn't it incumbent on you and the government, in line with what she's saying, to put some deterrence or border? Because like Stephen Hawkins, which is an interesting irony, he suffers from this motor neuron disease. He uses Intel and uses Swift key technology to prompt him with words because he's suffering from ALS. But he's talking about that robotics, the way we know it, is going to evolve so much faster than humans. You're going to actually combat with the kill switch. And there is a huge worry that robotics and AI will actually be all-pervading and will supersede human beings. So he is very serious about it. Elon Musk is talking about this whole basic income pay that needs to be thought of, largely because the amount of displacement we're going to see of people from robotics. So how do leaders, so what I'm only questioning, sir, is can we just step back saying fait accompli and step back, or what are the interventions you think one should look at?
Computers there. Today only there is news and reading the Economist article where the computer can really substitute human intelligence. Today computer is just functioning because the human intelligence is feeding into the computer. That means we need to concentrate in this country on developing the individual and social ecosystem which can leverage the technology. That means the social ecosystem must be more oriented towards building a platform what I think Sanjay mentioned.
Some types of technology like that allow you to go into kind of a remote delegation of tasks. And I think that's the scary part of AI, is that it could be doing things, like even with Excel. You see a lot of business people, after Excel became the standard business tool, they started doing all their business modeling within that tool. And that kind of shaped the way they were doing it. And a lot of the underlying principles were kind of taken for granted. So that was it wasn't AI, but AI has kind of that dangerous potential to take over something where you probably would like to have, you know, a human being maybe at the steering wheel.
Just give you some basic facts, you know, just rough numbers. The human brain, which has those billions of neurons, whatever, it's able to operate on just about 35 watts of energy. That's what the body gives the brain. If the most modern computer chip has to imitate the brain, it would require 350 megawatts of power. It has to carry, if it were a computer, it has to carry a power station with it in order to imitate the cognitive capabilities of the human brain. So to think that the human brain can be immediately replicated in the form of robots, it's, in my view, quite unfounded. Google says anything, any project where I can impact 1 billion people, they will invest. So they invested in Hindi language understanding, converting Hindi voice or phonetics to text. So there are companies in India which are doing a similar thing for the local languages. Kannada, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam. You know, great example is very close to this place, Sun TV. They have all the phonetic text, the news readers. News readers read the news and they have the corresponding text. If you give it to a computer, it will understand the voice, the accent, the words, correlate with the text that they are reading. And like Alexa, you can talk to it in Tamil. And Sun TV's dream is somebody sitting in a remote village in Tamil Nadu wants to say, Rajinikanth padam podu, that means it will automatically come. They don't have to key in anything. Provided a mechanism for sharing information, transmitting or broadcasting something. And technology expects people to behave responsibly and use it. If they don't, certain amount of policing will have to happen.
I enjoyed this conversation, and there's been a few contrapoints. I totally take, Mr. Vaghul, what you've been talking about, that there ought to be some way or form to create an ecosystem to reduce the digital divide, what we've been talking of offline. And levity aside, we totally get where you're coming from, but as proponents of technology, we want this thing to go on. And as Confucius had said, may you live in interesting times. Whether it was a curse or a blessing, one is still to find out. But I think we are in for an interesting time. And with that, I really want to thank this panel.